Isn't it interesting? Majority of all these people who came out advocating or speaking up for R. Kelly have now been implicated in so many rumors. Kind of like when Tim Savage came out with his enabler narrative and all these stupid people coming over here talking about we're R. Kelly sympathizers. When we hear these narratives, you have to stop and look at what's really going on. Now, allegedly, these people are saying that this person in particular that did an interview with Dr. Rice is now being implicated in abusing Azriel. And wouldn't that go along with what I've been saying all this time and how a lot of these things that these girls are saying were perpetuated through other people and R. Kelly is being held accountable for it? If you ask me, I feel like a lot of these girls were in relationships or situationships with these people in the entourage and not R. Kelly. But with that being said, it's very interesting with all these accusations and rumors going back around. Who do you see in the indictment? Only R. Kelly, June, and Daryl McDavid, the people that they were looking at for the first trial, claiming that they were doing all this illegal activity. I kind of find it odd that they will say that R. Kelly obstructed justice but refused to pay for this tape, which had this whole thing set in motion in the first place. He obstructed justice but wouldn't pay this guy who ended up suing him for not buying alleged child porn. Make that make sense. It's a lot of shady characters in this whole case, and it's interesting the names that aren't being brought out. Stay tuned for the rest of my commentary as I'll just conclude what I'm thinking with all these strange women who I feel are being used by other individuals. How many of you all saw this article from TMZ in which it says R. Kelly set up alleged sex slaves financially? They say wells run dry. How many of you saw that? I think that's very important considering right about now everybody keeps throwing around people's names. And let's just remind you some things that I told you from the beginning. Number one, some of these people portraying as R. Kelly supporters are not supporters. Number two, some ain't right with these people that had access to R. Kelly, therefore I trust none of them. And number three, these people put so much information out there on public platforms, and these sources that were tipping off these blogs and the media, they were not only coming from the opposing side, they were coming from people that were supposedly within R. Kelly's camp. With that being said, I always had this in the back of my mind. That's why I personally don't give a rat's ass about an exclusive when I don't trust none of these characters. It made no sense to me that these people felt like it was necessary to orchestrate people to come onto social media platforms and say certain things. And like I've said in many other videos, a lot of things on social media can be used against you in a criminal procedure. I hope that same thing applies when it comes to these alleged accusers that they keep claiming we don't know. But anyways, this article said this, and I find it very interesting. Many people didn't catch. I find it was one thing that caused Azriel to be put in the situation of what she did. It says, R. Kelly's alleged sex slaves should not be in danger of going hungry or becoming homeless anytime soon, even with the singer behind bars, but they claim someone's cut them off from Kelly's funding. This was 7/16/2009. R. Kelly's in jail, and whomever was giving them their stipends or whatever they had arranged cut them off. They were going broke. Joycelyn Savage and Azriel Clary have built up a nice nest egg during their time with Kelly by working as his assistants. They was working as his assistants. That's interesting. A lot of people have speculated on the fact that that was the gist of their relationships, their friendships, them being the girlfriends, their girls and their friends. Nah, I'm just being funny, but still, a lot of people just ain't buying that whole relationship. And the fact that these people are going in overdrive to fabricate these photos and all this other crap, it leaves you to question, is it really true? And who was this individual that cut off the funding? We're told while they were Kelly's live-in girlfriends, they also helped him by handling bookings and other business matters, and he paid them for it. So there should be a record of this payment history, right? He also gave them a weekly stipend, and they were able to save much of that cash because he paid for everything anyway. So he paying these girls, and he paying for everything else. They ain't gotta pay for nothing. All they gotta do is put their money to the side. But he the monster. And as we saw, Azriel had no problem. She was wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, living the good life up until what? The money runs out. Same thing Greenberg hit on. But anyways, their problem has been getting access to that money. Their attorney, Gloria Schmidt, tells us one of Kelly's staffers typically gives Azriel and Joycelyn cash. But she says since his arrest, that staffer has gone MIA. But that staffer has been available to certain bloggers. You see, that's why it's very interesting when you see these bloggers getting into these disputes and their associations and their encounters with some of these people within R. Kelly's entourage. According to what's been put out there now, maybe this specific individual assaulted Azriel. And that would be more so into what I was saying all this time, that I feel like maybe these people are saying this about R. Kelly because of the way other people and other things were going on around him. So if other people, like for example, give you an example. They were saying that even grown man said that he never directly contacted R. Kelly. R. Kelly has all these phones, right? So if he got people directing calls and they decide not to tell him this person called and this is that, who fault is that? If they're directing these calls for, maybe these people are calling being worrisome. These people fail to realize that yet again, all this stuff they were doing, these girls were adults. And to solidify the fact that they've done all this extra stuff in the public eye, they have to lean on the fact that they introduced Azriel to R. Kelly when she was 17. But can they produce anything that solidifies there was any sexual activity in between her being 17 and 18? The 3-month span that they highlighted. But somehow when you look in the indictment, it includes a May trip, which was allegedly booked by Cash Howard. Cash Howard, who was interviewed by the FBI. Yet another moment when we see all these people that have spoken to the FBI, all these people are still free, living their lives, doing whatever. Meanwhile, a lot of their actions may have been the cause that led to all this we see playing out. I just wanted to bring that to your attention when it comes to some of these names you've heard affiliated with R. Kelly, and the fact that I've said from the beginning, something ain't right with these people that know him. You may like some of these people that you've talked to, but at the end of the day, why would you rely on waiting to this man goes through all these allegations, let a docu-series air, you don't sue them, don't put a gag order, you don't do anything correctly, but you bring your asses on YouTube, and then y'all keep playing with these narratives. All I'm saying is y'all better open your eyes and see what's right in front of you. Have y'all noticed just how R. Kelly's name just bring out all these crazy women? And all this time with me researching what's going on, I promise you, I've come across a whole lot of questionable people. Not only people claiming to be affiliated with his camp, also people that claim to even be married to him. It's quite crazy. There was this lady on Facebook. She was setting up these cruise tours. I'm going to assume things went left with it. There's a whole lot of fraudulent activity, and as usual, R. Kelly would get the heat from it. As I pointed out many times before, there's a whole lot of questionable things going on in the background within his camp. Does he know what these people are doing? Who knows? But I tell you one thing, something just ain't right. You got people scamming money, creating products in his name, doing the absolute most. What's really going on? It's too much. What is really going on? You got the defense fund, which, let's think about it. If the feds really want to be dirty, how do we know they won't just seize whatever money is raised for him publicly? It's a lot of suspect notions going on. Watch the rest of this video and leave your comments below. Isn't it interesting that when it comes to these girls and their stories, all they need is a photo with R. Kelly and people just believe them? The question is, can they really prove any activity with R. Kelly? It's just like all these women that have emerged on social media. Some women claiming to be in a relationship with R. Kelly, some claiming to be family members of R. Kelly, some claiming to be girlfriends of R. Kelly, and most of them are centered around scams that are going around on social media. Take this woman, for example. I noticed that, according to her, she claims to have been in the R. Kelly Step in the Name of Love video. And if you did a little research, you would notice, for some strange reason, that song in particular started a whole lot of controversy within R. Kelly's camp, including a guy by the name of Uncle Henry Love, who claims that R. Kelly stole his lyrics or his dance moves. At the end of the day, like I've said, a lot of these people have personal conflicts with R. Kelly. So they were sold on certain narratives, and some of these people have been used to turn against R. Kelly. But does that mean that he is guilty of any crimes? Being controlling is not a crime. Being an asshole is not a crime. A lot of the things that we've heard about R. Kelly are not crimes, minus the fact that they want to keep pushing this narrative that he is a pedo, but cannot produce one child. If you do your research on pedos, they don't change their ways. You're not going to convince a person like me, a person is a pedo back in the 90s, but in 2000, 2010s, all this time period, you can't produce one minor to fit your narrative. You have to go all the way back to the 90s. Has anyone noticed that when these people involving this whole situation get caught up in some fraudulent activity, some scams, etc., they get to pointing the finger. This person did that person did that. Again, that was the reason why a lot of this drama began, is because people were pointing the fingers. You got people call themselves exposing the necks. And you got people in their feelings about personal situations. Now, if they felt like they weren't getting paid by the management team or whomever, they could have handled it one way. But this is the primary example as to why these people are jokes when they yell Black Lives Matter. When most of these people who yell about racism are prejudiced against their own. They've been so beaten down by systematic oppression, they don't even recognize when they do the shit. How many darker skinned people do you see attacking lighter skinned people? How many older black women do you see attacking younger black women? If you recall, when I first started talking about this Me Too thing, it was driven by all these old has-beens who feel some type of way about the things they've done in the past. And they try to merge that with this whole abuse trend that's going on right now and play with people's emotions. But at the end of the day, if you listen to what the problem is of these people, they're sitting here saying a 50-year-old shouldn't date a 18-year-old. A 18-year-old. But if that 18-year-old decides that they want to date this 50-year-old man and they want to benefit from it, and they got people around them telling them stuff like that, they feel embarrassed. They don't tell them. Do you see how this whole situation can be set up and why people need to stop being so freaking judgmental? And then the next thing you'll say, if a person such as that who are in that position, who are interested in older men or who date men for money, or in those positions, and they get abused in a situation, they don't feel comfortable speaking out, not because people don't believe them, it's because of that embarrassment alone. If they can't even tell you they're in a relationship, a situationship with these people, what makes you think they're going to come tell you if that person has abused them? Some people will look at it with like, hey, that's what you get. You was over here doing this for money. All of these things need to be talked about in the black community before people keep getting on the internet with all this rah-rah. Because we see the problem going on. We see it. I even heard somebody say that there's allegedly some white witnesses testifying against R. Kelly who used to work with him. But guess what? Are you trying to say the same people that will say Black Lives Matter, are you saying that these white witnesses are more credible than the black witnesses? In these docuseries, y'all have mentioned the fact that if these victims or accusers were white, R. Kelly would be hung. Well, I think y'all know exactly how y'all plan on that notion. Because, of course, if this was a black man accused of assaulting white women, he'd be up shit creek. Yes, absolutely, positively. But you're not going to sit here and play with people who got common sense mind and say that if it was a white man abusing white girls, that he wouldn't be up shit creek too. Oh, we know how that would work. Look at Epstein case. They could always score the sweetheart deal. Meanwhile, the black cases are going to be the ones demonized. People need to wake up and see how they are perpetuating the oppression within the black community before we start pointing fingers. Now, with all that being said, I just wanted to highlight the fact that when it comes to names of people within R. Kelly's camp, some people are going to be offended when they find out that the person that they thought was really for the person they support is really not. It doesn't take a genius to see that when you see that these people have allowed all this shit to go down and they hadn't said a word. The only time you see these people start to reach out to you and speak up is when they get implicated in what they did or what they took part in. These people don't come out and speak just because they see something wrong. They come out when they're implicated. Stay tuned, because the next video, I'm going to show the contrast between the depiction that Lifetime gave you about R. Kelly's studio life versus what you can visibly pull up. They presented this image to you that made you think that it would be girls every which way in this studio. But does that make it true? Have a good day.